Hi, this is Carlos, and this is the assembly guide for the Flying Lotus kit. Thank you so much to everybody that bought the first batch. Let's get into it. Here, I have everything that you will need that is not included in the kit. Some of these are optional, so let's go over them. At the absolute minimum, you will need the main board with some compatible memory and storage attached, the screen, and the battery. I guess technically the battery is optional, but if you want to be portable, you will definitely need a battery. So if you have these three, you have a computer. But you also probably want Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, and for that you need the Wi-Fi card. And with a Wi-Fi card, you definitely need an antenna. I'm not sure if that's the case with this one, but whenever I work with microcontrollers that need an antenna, if you turn the microcontroller on without the antenna plugged in, you can damage them. But even if it didn't, it wouldn't work that well anyway, so just make sure to get the antenna if you get the Wi-Fi card. You also probably want expansion cards, because it's very hard to reach the ports without these. Framework recommends at least one with a USB-C port so that you can charge it without having to reach into the case. So I guess I'll do the same. Probably 4 is better unless you really never use ports except to charge it. Up to you. Next, we have the audio board, which adds a combo jack for headphones and microphone to your computer. This one's optional as well. I didn't even buy it for a while, and I haven't used it that much, to be honest. But I'm going to install it for those of you that do need it. And that's it for the components. Now let's talk tools. If you have the framework screwdriver that comes with the laptops, you're all set. That's all you need. If not, you only need a screwdriver with 2 tips, Phillips number 1 and a Torx 5. For this guide, I'm going to use the framework screwdriver because if you bought a laptop, you already have that. So let's move on and let's take a look at the actual kit. And here it is. This is basically what you'll receive, plus the stand, which is separately, but I'll show you later. But the main part looks like this. It's basically put together already. Instead of sending you a bag of screws and pieces separately, I figure it's easier if everything's already assembled, and when you need to place a component, you just take the screws off, place the component, and then put the screws back in. Anyway, the rear cover is transparent, but right now it has the paper protective film for the plexiglass. This particular version is the black on black version. If you order the black and orange, it would instead look something like this. So anyway, let's get to it. So I like to start in the front actually with the screen, but before I do that, I want to remove the back cover, and you'll see why in a minute. So let's do that right now. I'm going to use the Phillips head to remove all the screws in the back. All right, and that's the last one. So as I remove the cover, let's pay attention to the power button over here. I need to slide that out and just put it somewhere safe for the time being. By the way, this is the black kit, so it has a black button. If you get the black and orange, you will get an orange button. But that's it on this side for now. Let's turn this around and install the screen. Same deal as on the other side. We're going to remove the screws from the cover, and they're the same size as the ones in the back, so you know they can mingle. All right, so now we can bring in this screen, and I'm just going to line up these 4 tabs and the screw holes with the ones in the kit. Your screen will probably look nicer than this. This is the one I've used for all the prototypes, so it's been installed and uninstalled at least a dozen times. Anyway, you're just going to line it up, and now I'm just going to make sure this cable at the bottom lines up. There's like a little channel where you can push this cable into. And at the end of this channel, you're going to find a little hole that goes to the other side of the kit, to the rear, and you're just going to thread the cable through there, which is why we remove the rear cover, because it's easier to push the cable through when the rear cover is not there. Once that is done, we're going to put the cover back in. But if you flip it around, you'll see that there are these little strips here of little double-sided tape. And this is not permanent tape or anything like that, but it does help to keep the edges in place because the screws are so far apart, especially on the thin edges on the sides. But if you need to replace your screen later or something like that, the tape is easy to remove and replace. So I'm just going to peel these. And once they're all peeled, I'm just going to line it up. And I put the screws in just to make sure everything's lined up. And then I apply some pressure. And then I tighten the screws in. And we're done on this side. I'm not going to peel the protective film yet because I'm going to flip this around and it's going to slide on the desk and whatnot. So we'll come back to that later. For now, let's just flip this around and finish screwing everything in. Now that we're on this side, you can see the cable from the screen coming through. But we're going to leave that alone for now, and we're going to move on to installing the battery, which goes here on the top. I'm just going to place it like this with the top side first, and then I just have to tighten these 3 screws. And for this, I'm going to use the Torx 5 side of the screwdriver, which is the only time I will need the Torx tip. All right, now we're ready for the main board, and let me change back to the Phillips head. The main board is going to use 5 screws. These 4 on the edges, and this one close to the middle. So I'm going to take those off. And now that they're off, the main board can go like this. But if you're going to install the audio board, which goes here, this ribbon cable is kind of a pain to connect once the main board is installed. So I recommend you connect it before you screw down the main board. So I'm going to lift the main board, and there's a little connector here where the ribbon cable goes. So I'm just going to push it in there, and that's it. Now they're connected, and I can screw down the main board. These screws, by the way, they go straight into the aluminum plate in the middle, so they're pretty secure. All right, let's screw in the audio board. So for that, I'm going to remove these 2 screws and then place the audio board and then put the screws back in. All right, so those guys are out, and I'm just going to place the audio board. It's a little tricky just to get the jack in through the hole, but it's not too bad. Now that that's in, I'm just going to put these screws back in, and the audio board is in there. All right, now let's install the Wi-Fi, which goes on the opposite side of the audio board. So I'll remove that screw. For the Wi-Fi, of course, we need the antenna, like I mentioned before. But before we connect the antenna, we just need to change the way the cable comes out of it, just in order for it to be able to sit flush. It's very simple. You just have to push the cable through this hole in the frame. And once it goes all the way through, that's it. Now the cable should come out of the bottom of the housing instead of through the top. And with that, we can now connect it to the Wi-Fi card, which is also very simple. You will see this black and the white arrows, and you just connect the corresponding colored cables to that connector. It's kind of hard for my fat fingers, but there we go. All right, now I just connect this to the main board and screw it down. And then the antenna, I'm just going to route the cables, and there's a small cavity under this frame where this cable can go, and then I can just set the antenna flat on this space here on the frame. So there are magnets in the antenna frame, and I put a metal strip on the edge of the frame, but it's not strong enough, so I probably will put some double-sided tape on there so that you can put the antenna. It doesn't really matter, because even without tape or the magnets, once you put the cover in, the antenna doesn't really go anywhere. But I probably will include a double-sided tape so that if you open it or whatever, the antenna doesn't really move. Anyway, so I'm going to put this down. And we're basically done. Now we just have to connect the battery and the video cable to the main board. I'm going to start with the screen. And it's this little cable that we threaded through, remember? And this connector just goes flat against the main board. So you make sure it's aligned, and then you just push it in, and that should do it. And then for the battery, it just goes sideways into the main board. And that's it. Now I saw the flashlight in there. Great. At this point, I'm ready to put the cover back in. But before I do that, it's time to remove the protective film from the inside of the cover. The inside is the side that has this little peg protruding out of the paper. now that that's off, I'm going to insert the power button. And that just goes in this little space over here. And once that's done, I'm just going to put the cover on top, making sure that the button goes through the little hole. All right, and now I'm just going to screw everything down. All right, and we're done. I'll turn it on just to make sure that everything's connected properly and everything before I peel the protective films. Might take a minute the first time. All right, and there it is. Great. All right, so I need a keyboard to turn it off. All right, now that it's off, let's do the honors and peel this thing. I knew that was gonna happen. All right, yep, great. And now you can add the expansion cards. I already have the one that I use for the keyboard to turn the computer off, but you can add whichever you want or none. And of course, it helps to see them through the transparent cover, unless you got the black cover. The last thing you need is the stand, unless you're hanging your computer somewhere, of course. But the stand should come included in your kit. If you're part of the first batch, you got 2 versions of the stand. The original, which is the one that was in the original video, but you also got a new upgraded one, which is the one that will be included in all the next batches. This upgraded one has a steel insert that gives it some extra weight to help with the stability. The original wasn't bad while you were working or anything. I never had issues really, but the extra weight does help if something happens. For example, if someone bumps the table or if you're working somewhere windy, etc, etc, etc. And to put the stand on, it's pretty simple. You just slide it off to take it apart from this travel mode, if you will. There's a little hole at the bottom, and that's the side that goes into the base. And then the computer has a slit on the bottom and you insert that on. Or if you want it in portrait mode, you insert it on the right side, like this. And that's it. Congratulations, you now have a Flying Lotus. Yeah. Thank you so much for being part of this. I hope you enjoy it. If you have any issues or questions, feel free to reach out through the store or through the emails that you got. Other than that, I will see you in the next video.